All right. So we're going to get together today to talk code for GulliBot.
Mhm.
It'd be good to kind of record this and show it to other people that are interested in the code. And probably need to do some documentation at some point, but it all takes time. So all the code right now is under the Reason Score GitHub. Reason Score is kind of the base scoring technology, and then GulliBot's an example implementation of it. So in theory, if corporations wanted to have internal technology do this, they might use Reason Score rather than GulliBot. But I don't know. That may never come to fruition, but that was the initial idea. Or I had Reason Score as a name before GulliBot ever came up. So it's all under there. I guess I'll kind of go ahead and mention this is the gullibot.com website. It is written in 11T. So it's a static site generator.
Okay.
So that's probably won't be much need to be done on there. But then for the actual kind of core technology, well, we have the one called core and one called editor. So core is meant to be the base code that you might use if you're using different visualizations. And actually what's interesting about that is that, so in our Airtable, we have in the GulliBot data one, and the claims, and we put in this scoring mechanism where it puts the percent confidence from calculation from the Reason Score math. The code it's running in here is just using the core module,
Excuse me.
right? So it just basically does the math. And it has very few dependencies. I don't even know that. Does it have any? So as Jest and Babel. So we're using rollup in some places. But the main code itself doesn't have a lot of dependencies. I couldn't remember if I put in, I guess I haven't yet, something, the text in the claims can have markdown in them, but I don't think I have any markdown in here. So that's so if you just wanted to build a brand new interface, or if you wanted to somehow run the algorithm for generating the scores, you would use core. And then the editor is the main one that we see on the Reason Score and GulliBot sites. So that's the React program that that shows up here. Let's see. And of course it uses core. Now I can't remember how I have it right now. I probably might need to change the name of core, but let's see. So at Reason Score core, but right now it's pointing to a file. So when you're building this, you need to make sure that Reason Score core is in a peer folder to the one you have this in, so that it can find it and access it, rather than having it, because it's still under such high development that actually posting it and using it as a npm package. First of all, I really don't want to put it inside npm just because it's there. Although I am using the GitHub, I think I have it. I don't know that it's up to date, but I think I have. Oh, maybe I removed it. I thought I had it as a package. You know what? That's in the thing. Let's see, core. Ah, there we go. Nope, that's projects. I thought I already did have it built as a package, but apparently I don't. or it's somewhere I can't see it. So yeah, anyways, the core, the editor, um, and then reasonscore.github.io, that is the reason score site. And then you got the gullibot.com site. And then the Gullibot Airtable is this code to run the scoring system on the claims, so you can see what the score is. But yeah, one of the tricks is, that you have to have them, all these files that they're using each other. You have to have them in folders right next to each other in the same parent folder, so that you can so that they can access each other. And then let's see. So just to get an idea on how the core module works, I do have some built-in tests in here because they get rather complex. And so you can kind of look at the tests to see how to use the API, because I don't have it documented well.
Okay.
They're still kind of hard to read. Like calculate score tests is just calculating kind of one group of children scores and telling you what the parent score would be, but it doesn't handle a whole tree of scores.
Mhm.
So calculate score action tests does a whole tree. So the reason score API is mostly event based. So you create an action and then you send all. So right now I'm creating 2 actions, and then let's see. And then we're running it through this program that'll calculate the score actions. And that takes a repository, and the repository is kind of just where it stores all of its data. And then you can check the repository to get the results. RS data is the kind of data object, so it has no functions on or anything like that. RS data can be serialized, and that's actually what I save. Like you can download a a debate, or you can. They're also saved in Firestore right now. So that's the data object used to look at it, and then you can. Well, actually, you know what? I might be wrong because yeah. No, I guess that is. That's just a dictionary. Yeah. So this is just checking to see that there's only one top test claim. Yeah. So you just kind of build up a whole bunch of actions, and then you send them into a repository. The repository calculates the scores and builds the data into an RS data. And then you can also test it, add a couple scores, run some tests, add a couple scores, run some tests to see that it's adjusting properly. Oh, wait, I got lots of tests in here. Probably need to break this up into multiple files. And in the data, you have claims, you have claim edges, because a claim can be reused in multiple debates. And you can actually store multiple debates within a RS data object. So you have a score tree, which is the tree of the calculated scores for a main claim. Yeah. So you can see that this calculate score actions is kind of the main. Well, that's the main action that does all the processing on a big tree, but it calls. Let me see. So calculate score is where the actual kind of math formula is. So you're just sitting in a group of child scores. So it doesn't know anything about the whole tree or anything like that. And it runs through all the, so this is kind of the main thing that people will be looking at to say, how does, and I got a lot of things commented out because I was experimenting with different scoring methods, but this is where a lot of people would say, how's the actual math done? Well, they could look at this. It's not very easy to look at, but it's not extremely long, 160 lines and some of its comments.
Yeah. For the people who know how to read it, it's not hard. For the people who don't know how to read it, it's pretty impenetrable.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, I mean, some of it's kind of complicated because when you're looking at these children, they have scores from it's assumed that they have scores from their children, or it
Mhm.
sets up some defaults. So thinking through that kind of recursive thing is kind of complex. At some point, I'll need to make an explainer video on how the scores are calculated, or actually I have one, which I can show you. So kind of any questions about the core module there, and I can jump to the editor.
Is that
No,
explainer video on is that explainer video on the YouTube channel, Bentley?
Well, the easiest way to get to it right now is reasonscore.com. So it's the main video here.
Okay, gotcha.
And then I'll show you in a second on the script I used to build that video. This is using
Okay.
a different UI. Yeah, but that's the video. And I don't know how good it is, but it really walks you through an example. Explaining how it's done by stepping through the math is not very helpful to the human brain. You kind of need to see it happen and then it just kind of clicks. It's kind of my understanding, because it's too hard to kind of keep a recursive algorithm in your head. But yeah, one of the things of this project is also kind of figuring out what's the best way to explain it. But it also works the way you would expect a child to understand things. So it's simple and it's kind of how it works, but it's complex in implementation. Any other questions on the core?
moment. I imagine most of my questions will be once I start poking into it for the issues.
Yeah, and then so I mentioned that the editor has references the local file for the dependency for the core, and then you can start the editor. Let's see where that pops up. Actually, I think I don't remember. And I may have broke this the other day. Yeah, so localhost 3000. There is a. Does that work? No. So one way is to just flat out kind of start it, and then you can play with it. But another way to kind of look at the code in here, or to watch it function. Sorry, wrong one. Oh, that was the right one. We have these public. It's the editor. Now I'm getting mixed up between all my things. Did I? Oh, I did move everything under here. So there's an index base, which is which you can open with live server. So different than starting, because starting it starts the React script, but these are meant to be islands of functionality within a regular website. So index base, open with live server. Let's see if this works. Yeah. And here are some things that I've kind of built. So this is the fictional city demo. And then the video script actually, you can kind of call the API and send things in. So this, and it has audio, MP3s.
It's
Yeah.
very quiet.
Oh,
Is
there's-
the audio like a Microsoft SAM generator, or is this people recording their own
That's
audio?
my voice.
Okay,
yeah.
it was very quiet, so it's hard to hear.
Oh, well, it was quiet because it's playing through my speakers. It's not going through.
Yeah, I figured it was not because of the intended volume.
It'd be really annoying. But yeah, so that's and so all those files are in the public folder. So you got the demo, you got one for editing. I was working on iframes. I have some different visualizers. I don't know that I had. Oh yeah, so like here's the different way to kind of visualize the data by forces. So each claim is a force pulling it one way or the other, and that's using D3GS physics engine. But that one's not working really good. So these are just some experiments. There's another physics-based one. Guess I can. They're not grabbable. I thought they were. There we go.
Maybe they had to get close enough for their final position first.
I don't know, but you can see that this big circle here is pulled a little bit to the right.
Mhm.
So, and then you'd normally say what the scale is here, so you can see that this is about, this is on the truer side,
Mhm.
and you can kind of see that it has more stuff. But actually, I don't recall whether these weights actually ended up being accurate. Like this, I guess it might be. This is canceling out this arrow. Anyways, so that's some different kind of visualizations, and just to make those easier, I put them in there. And they're just actually these visualizations are really just probably just using the core module. They're not using the editor, what I call the editor at all. And going forward, we'll probably separate the editor from the visualizations. I just kind of coded it all at once, but I'm thinking we're going to have lots of different visualizations, and we'll want an editor that's much easier to move things around. So eventually we'll probably rename this, and the editor, we might use React Arborist. Is that the one?
You had posted that in a
Yeah.
Slack before.
Yeah, so then this also allows you to drag and drop in a hierarchy. So we could use this as the editor, and so it'd be quick kind of data entry. You can drag and drop things around. And we could probably put it in the Airtable app, and then they would show up here, and you could just drag them. Because the hardest kind of thing is understanding, the hierarchy and moving whole sections around. Like when you probably just did a whole bunch of that, Matthew, or about to.
Mhm.
Um, Yeah.
I did a whole bunch in one. I'm about to do more.
yeah. You'll say that that's kind of it's not that, maybe not that hard in the database, I guess.
I mean, it's not that hard, but
Yeah.
being streamlined would add up over time.
Yeah. Yeah. And being able to kind of see it while you're doing it, I think makes it easier to see if you
Definitely
got it
handy.
right. So what's interesting is there's a little quirk on this editor on when it's built, because the default React setup assumes that you have a single index.js file and that you're kind of hosting that as a single page
Mhm.
application. But this is meant to be more of a web component. And I wrote this before web components were popular enough that I'd heard about them. So I had to do a little bit of hacking so that I build it out. So I have a post React build script, and every time it builds React, it builds a I don't remember where they put it. and I actually deleted, I think, in my build step. But they changed the name of the JavaScript file that's being built so that as you're deploying it, it updates. So I want to be able to deploy this stuff to the Reason Score site, and the Gullibot site actually points to the Reason Score site to get the editor scripts. So let's kind of look at that. Maybe don't have it. Anyways, in this file, it is okay, yeah. So it's sending him to reasonscore.github.io/static. So it's sending it to a static folder on the Reason Score website. It used to do it for Gullibot, but I changed Gullibot to point to the Reason Score one.
Yeah, if
So
they have
actually, go ahead.
if they have the same structure, no reason to have it in two separate locations.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, so when Gullibot runs, yeah, it's not using the standard kind of React setup. I've been having trouble since the latest version of GitHub Desktop. Do it this way. Reason Score. Gullibot.com. I normally use GitHub to open up these things. So when I have page COVID vaccine, so I run this script reason score full.js out of static. So this is the Gullibot site, but it's pulling the source for the script from reasonscore.com/static, reason score full, and then reason score full calls the latest file to kind of do cache busting. I had to have it call a secondary file, and then that file runs all the code, and then it looks for window.rs settings to determine what to run, and then the DB collection. That's the name of the RS data from Firestore. Yeah. So then it'll look at these settings and it'll upload Firestore. This code will hit Firestore, pull up that data and display it. And then these are a lot of the settings that are available through the editor. Whether or not they can save data to the cloud, which of course you can get around that, but these are just kind of UI flags. So, and actually, if we're doing any, I don't know that you're going to need to be editing, because I think what we're going to do is make a way to where we can update Firestore directly from Airtable.
Mhm.
So we'll have like a publish button that'll do that. And then, but right now, if someone wanted to play with it, to be able to edit, the editor is only built into reasonscore.com. It's not built into, yeah, I just don't have it turned on for gullibot.com. I don't, so the security settings for the Firestore base doesn't allow gullibot.com to save edits. So it has to be done through Reason Score right now. So, and then you can edit the claim. And then when you edit, you have a save locally, and then to save it, you save to cloud when you're kind of done, and that way you can edit it and look at it and save it to the cloud. But we'll probably take this editor out because we'll probably be using Airtable as a base. And you
Yeah, we
can
just don't
down-
want it to be accessible that way either.
Yeah, and so few people are going to be editing because they're going to be communicating through Twitter to us because it's a. And then later on, if we try and sell it as a tool, we're going to have all these different visualizations. So we'll want to have a dedicated. This is how you edit them,
That's true.
which so you might select it in the visualization, but then the editor screen would pop up separately. And I didn't really code this well to where it's kind of a separate module. I don't know. It is actually a separate React module, but anyways. Now I don't know why. So Gullibot, you can turn on the editor in the settings. Editable. And so we got to figure out why all the RSS is different on here. I mean, not the I'm sorry, not RSS, of course, the settings, the CSS. So like these buttons are huge. Yeah. I just never really set it up right. And then just kind of give some information. We do have lots of different kind of visualizations on here. So even those lines on the video, you can see how far right or left these little pointer bubbles are, give you an idea of the score. Let's see, you can show the actual confidence score. Turn off editable. I gotta fix this bar down here. You can toggle on and off the search. Large numbers or small numbers, the buckets, visualizations. And then there's also a fractionalized, so the fractionalized, let's turn off those lines. Like this one is 33% confident, but it's a total of, it's affecting the main claim as just a 3%, kind of a minus 3% to the main claim. Oh, that's interesting. It's covering up the numbers. Let's do large numbers. Somewhere, oh, hide main score. There we go. So 76. This one, this 90, it's 99% confident, but it's only, it's increasing the 76 by 27. This one's increasing it by 0. So the idea is maybe that's a little bit easier to understand is this kind of, how are each of these claims affecting the top score? So in theory, if you added all these numbers together, it should equal 76. But sometimes the math isn't working out right when you have something is more important than the other stuff. So all these different ways of visualizing and explaining it is
A quick thought, this isn't related to the code, but something just came to mind. Would it potentially be a good idea for when people submit claims to show them this is what your contribution to the debate will look like for them before we approve it for everybody else? I feel like
I
that
mean, I
would drive
definitely want to give
engagement.
them feedback and say, hey, this is how it changed the percentage. I don't think I would want to tell them about it, and I wouldn't want to invite that level of delay. You know what I'm saying?
Well, there's already going to be that level of delay because we have to approve what's submitted. It just feels like it would drive engagement for them to see, like, yes, I've made these points and this is the effect it's going to have on it. They get to see it immediately and have that positive feedback for having engaged.
Oh, well, you mean show them immediately?
Yeah, like for them, their view will be
So
what
I
they
would,
have submitted.
yeah, I mean, yeah, that would be a future thing. Yeah. So right now everything's going through Twitter because I didn't want to take the time to build. They don't have the display even correct. So building a UI where they could submit something and stuff was kind of that added level of complexity.
That's an
So
eventual goal.
that's that's definitely a potential future. I don't know if I'd say it's a goal because we may decide that it's never kind of useful to do that, but it's definitely one of the options to think about. So yeah, kind of after this proof is rather than having them. So like right now, there's a tweet about this claim, and that's where they would give their feedback. Which we need to give more information on.
I didn't want to derail it too much. Just that came to mind as saying that.
But that's something interesting to kind of show. Yeah, if you put something here, it'd be plus, you know, yeah, it would increase the top score by 5% or something like that. Would be interesting. Or I mean, let them actually add it and see it change, but put a little warning on it saying this is not final. Or it's not displayed to everyone else. This is your personal copy.
Yeah, that's what I was envisioning. Wouldn't want them to think that this is immediately applied. We'd want it to be clear that this is how it will look if everything you've submitted it is approved.
Yeah. Yeah. So in theory, you can also put one of these on any other website because you can see in the code for this site that any other website could. This is just an HTML. Well, this isn't an HTML page, but it ends up being an HTML page, right? Site. COVID vaccine. So this is the way the HTML page ends up being generated through 11D, but you see that anyone could. Where's the actual? I guess all my code's up here. Yeah. So the script ended up being up here. And then anyways, but anyone could, make a website and put this in. And even some of the like WordPress embed HTML sections, we could auto generate the code for them and say, embed this on your site, and they could paste it and it would work. So that's something I want to keep. So I can handle embeds easily. And at some point, make an official O embed server, which Facebook and Flickr and have embeds. So that's becoming a standard embed format. Yeah, so those are kind of the quirks. The fact that you have to have all the files in the same folder, and that when it builds the actual React program and it's used in Reason Score and Gullibot, I have that script that goes in, and so then to deploy it, you have to like build it in the editor, make your changes in the editor, and then I think when you run build, it automatically runs the build. Where am I? I'm in Gullibot. It's not helpful. Yeah, so I have it labeled post build, and I think I can't remember if it runs that automatically or not. Whenever you run build, it might. But then it copies them. But once again, you have to have the React website in there, and then you have to go to the React website and publish it. So that's what you'd have to do a full deploy. And I'd suggest go ahead and making a separate branch. I don't think we need to do like a separate fork and do a pull request. We could do branches and then we can do pull requests. If you want to have code reviews, it might be good to do that for the first couple of times.
I think
So you
it
probably won't be
definitely would be good.
deploying, but yeah, when you're playing with it, I think when you're testing your own work, running it depends whether you're correcting the actual editor or whether you're correcting the way it displays on Gullibot, because it looks differently because I have there's different parent CSS. One of the tasks may be, well, let's actually use, actually put it into a web component library so it works like an actual web component. Yeah. So I don't know. So that probably gets you understanding some of the quirks. Do you have any questions about it until you get in there?
Not until I get in there. There hits a point of information saturation
Yeah.
where actually working with it to get it structured in my head is going to be more important.
Yeah. Let's see. Look at the beta launch task and see. Well, I don't even know if I can really give you a good UX or a good, sorry, not UX, but a good task right now. Well, almost something to be thinking about is that right now, if you click more info, the one that you have selected right now is the button disappears. So I've this top one selected and the buttons disappear. And show all does it. Yeah. So really what we want that to probably be is like a close. But to get that to work, it would need to, well, that's interesting. They're not appearing at all on the show all is kind of a hack actually. I need to fix how that works.
Yeah, we'd want it to alternate between more info, less info, or close info.
Or close, and probably change the more info to be
Expand.
Yeah, expand expand and close might be better. Because people are thinking that those are like links or more information about this when it's the child claims. And so one thing that I do want to do is do a design session, although I want to get my coworker Max in on it. But what I'd like to do is I've built up a Miro board, kind of brainstorming on this. So I got some kind of like design goals, kind of thinking the order that people most likely, want to know the information, the order the questions appear in their head. And then I got some kind of different visualizations, like Kielo or things I've done in the past, and some of the different options that we have on there and decide. But yeah, one of the first things is kind of deciding what's that expand button look like? I mean, would it be better to do the traditional arrows to the left of them, but then how does that look on mobile? And such and so forth. So there's probably not much to do until we have that meeting. So I'll probably set something up for next week.
There's probably some sites out there that can give us good best practice examples. There's got to be something
Um,
that has expanding or expanding children that is a core feature.
yeah, the yeah. This is um this has different constraints
It
than
does, but for that
yeah.
very specific use case, it would be good to at least have some examples of other instances that are using it.
Yeah, so probably the most popular one is Reddit. Because the main example is a threaded well,
Yeah, on Reddit, it specifically does
I thought
specify
they had
what it is that we're expanding, but it doesn't include a or shrink option,
I thought
or
it
it
had
does,
a
but it's not that accessible.
yeah, I thought it had a different tree view than what I'm seeing here. The way the voting. So yeah, it's fully expanded. I thought they had one where you could more easily collapse and show. Oh, okay.
I mean, they have the hide child comments on each of them.
Yeah.
They actually have two different expanding methods on there, because they have the base one, and then if something gets deep enough, they just completely separate it from the main view and put it into continue this thread for its own review.
Yeah.
That does speak to your point that the use case is going to define it, because those don't suit what we would need for this.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know of any other. I mean, I know I've used lots of sites in the past. I mean, I guess one of the other UX examples of this is just the Windows tree view.
True, and many people are going to be familiar with that.
Yeah.
They designed it that way because it is probably the most accessible according to their testing.
Yeah. Well, they designed it in 1980, 1990.
That's fair. They also have kind of created people's experience with it because
Yeah,
that's how they
it's
did it.
become kind of the standard. Yeah, but then we need to decide what really works for mobile because of the extra space that this takes up. Although it's funny because um, the Kialo people for their mobile view, they still have. Oh no, they don't. Oh, that's the activity screen. Yeah, so they still have like two columns, one for pros and one's for cons. And for me, that just feels. I mean, I guess it works.
Well, in this case, they're just collecting the pros and cons independently rather than structuring them as responses to each other. So they're communicating something very different.
Yeah. But yeah, that's in. So they don't have. When you go down, they don't have any sort of indicator for going deeper and going up. You just click it. Yeah. So this is some of the things we'll discuss here. The other problem is, we want them to be able to. There's a lot of different things we want people to be able to do. But you don't want to have those buttons on every single thing when you're listing 50 of them because it'll really clutter up the interface. So
Mhm.
kind of when you select them, then I guess I don't see, I guess this. Yeah. Yeah. So I think we need to kind of have that meeting about user interface. But one of the main things that people definitely have trouble with, like I've had people say come to the site and they're saying, well, it doesn't work. Of course, that means they didn't actually read it, right? Because they're like, it says click the more info link to see the claims this link is based on.
Mhm.
I think they just skipped over that. But if this was an arrow, that looked more like a button. But then are you going to have that on every single one? And if you're going to put it in there, do you want to move it out here? But if it's out here, that means you're losing a lot of screen real estate. So someone had also suggested to have.
Oh yeah, menus are a good example. Actually, no, never mind. Mike had linked an example with menus.
Yeah, I was gonna say a plus sign, but then I realized in the trees we also have, if you click on that minus sign there, across from menu, something like that. But you're already using pluses and minuses elsewhere in that UI, like when you're showing the score adjustment. But just from an affordance, what accessibility folks call affordance, right? If you want something that takes up minimal amount of space but has good affordance for, like, what happens when I click this plus or minus? Okay, I get it pretty easily,
Yeah, but I think maybe the standard of having an arrow, although that does look kind of like a play button, but an arrow that then pivots from sideways to down and then back
Yeah.
up. And maybe having that here and changing the text is something I thought, but then
Yeah, I think the arrow is sufficiently distinct from a play button because play buttons are, as far as
circle.
I've seen, always filled in. It being the outline with an open side is a clear visual distinction.
Oh, well, I wasn't thinking. I was thinking of a triangle more than a. But
Oh.
yeah, so we could do all that. But one of the short things is that once people get in here and they go down a couple layers, and then they want to go back up, they want to click this, which is gone. When really all they have to do is click that.
Yeah, I think for the moment, a task being to change it so it goes from more info to less info would be good because we can easily replace what it cycles between once we have the base or functioning.
Yeah.
And it's a fairly simple, or it should be a fairly simple fix since it's just changing what elements are visible.
Yeah. And I put this text in here just because I was like, if you feel I'm correct, I kind of wanted them to read all of this stuff because I feel like if I put this up here, if I do a little intro to GulliBot, I have a feeling that people are just going to jump to the content. And I even putting this based on 55 claims, like normally it would just say, I am confident that you should take the real claim is just that. That's the only claim. Everything else is I put in there to encourage people to see it. So I don't know if we put this stuff elsewhere on the screen, whether people would ever read it.
This really feels, and this is something that would be a later solution, but it really feels like something where we should have a GulliBot or pop-up or something where it's an image of GulliBot saying, do you think I'm wrong about this? Here's how to tell me. Because that's going to be a visual indicator for a very core function of the sites.
So someone had also suggested to, which is probably, I don't know, it's probably what we're going to settle on, or one of the contenders is you do just have this, but it starts up with a training. What are those called? Where it has a box and an arrow pointing to different things and they're highlighted on the screen. So it kind of steps them through how to read it real fast. Because it's complicated enough that I don't know whether we'll ever be able to make it intuitive. Although maybe this whole sentence about if you feel I'm correct, the other option I was thinking about that I didn't get around to is just give them a thumbs up or a thumbs down. if they hit thumbs down rather than just taking it as a score, we pop up this thing and say, hey, you think I'm wrong, this is how you change it. But then you have that thumbs up, thumbs down on every single, or is it just on the, I guess it could be on just the one that's currently highlighted. So all those design decisions, just need to think through them. And it'll probably have several UIs, and it'd be interesting to also have it to where you can turn them all on and off.
Yeah, I think you only want so many options for UI or management, since once you hit a certain point, people open the menu, be overwhelmed by it, and just close it again.
Mhm.
Or
Well,
if you do
yeah,
have
I mean,
it, have it tucked
no
away.
one should be opening up this one. I mean,
Mhm.
it's there for people that might want to share it on their website, and then, but yeah.
Mhm.
But yeah, the options on here, it's almost like I want nothing except for the more info. And then when they click that, the additional options come down in this section. Right now it says tweet about this claim, but
I do think having the I agree, I disagree options visible is probably long-term going to be valuable, both because there's a potential value in having a high level of agreement being used for possible weighting if we decide to go that way. If we don't, then that's fine. And having it built in for the disagreement to lead to a Y does feed people directly into the core function of the bot.
yeah.
And specifically, if it's or why, is it a reason that somebody said below? Something that encourages them to think about the reason they're disagreeing rather than just blindly hitting the button.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that beholds us to having the thumbs up and thumbs down doing mirror effects, having them do disparate effects that is in this case far better.
Yeah. The other weird thing about it that we'll get into when we talk about design is that when they say up arrow, are they agreeing with, are they saying it's good, like they think that you should take the COVID vaccine? Or are they agreeing with Gullibot if Gullibot said, I'm not very confident that you should take the COVID vaccine? Which are they agreeing to? And that's almost why when you can have the thumbs up, the thumbs down just for a simple UI, but when they hit it, it's like, okay, which thing are you agreeing to? Or which thing do you like? Do you like the original intent of the claim or the scoring of the claim? So
so at that point, it does suggest that the top level claim should have a slightly different UI than all of the child claims.
well, you do have that same problem on all the child claims too. But there often is a slightly different UI, but in that case, it'll apply to all these as well because they have a score and a statement. So they could still be agreeing, like they could agree that it's uncertain, or they could agree with, they could be disagreeing with the score, but agreeing with the, but so yeah, whatever, maybe even whatever button they press, it'll come up with the same statement because they could be wanting it to go up and they could be wanting it to go down. And that's also why I was thinking maybe an arrow. And it says,
I just saw that it's 9:58 and I do have the hard stop for 10.
Yeah, well, that's cool. We've gone over enough. We're kind of, I'll set up another meeting to chat about.
Yeah, and it sounds like I have an initial task to branch off and look at to figure out how to make it more info, less info.
Yep.
I'm not going to make any promises about how quickly I will pick up the code base here.
Yeah.
Since from the start, I was clear that I'm somewhat rusty on all that. Though that is pretty close to the last thing that I fixed.
It's not a clean code base, so I have no expectations. Let me know.
Yeah, it's definitely broken up more than any code base I've worked with before. So that's going to be interesting. I'm honestly not even sure how branching in different files and then trying to interact with those branches with the other files that are dependent on them will work, but I'll figure that out.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
With 1 minute to go, it's not the time to dive into that.
Talk to you tomorrow.
Yep. Talk to you then.
All right. See you, Matthew.
Bye.